Welcome on the podcast, Oliver Savell.
Starring fantastic Oliver Savell.
14-year-old actor who stars as young Alan Carr in ITV's Changing Ends, which is about Alan Carr's childhood.
Believe it or not, there was a time before I was a national treasure.
Also starred in horror film The Piper and had a role in Kenneth Branagh's Belfast alongside the likes of Judi Dench. ITV's most watched comedy of 2023 with over 7 million streams.
It was amazing.
So what's your favourite thing about acting?
Getting to create a character and tell a story.
What's your least favourite?
All the rejection, I'd say. Yeah, it was a real low for me. Like I honestly wanted to give up acting.
Welcome on the podcast, Oliver Savell. How are you today?
Very good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing very well. So, if people don't know who you are, explain to them what you do.
So I've been an actor for the last 5 years, and recently I starred in Changing Ends, which is a sitcom about Alan Carr's childhood, and I play young Alan Carr.
Yeah. So let's go right back to the start. What were you like as like a young child?
I've always been a very loud, energetic, excitable kid. I've always loved, dressing up. There's actually a video of me dressed up as Henry VIII, eating a chicken drumstick and then chopping it behind me. So, I guess I've always had that little bit of actor in me.
Yeah, you can see the actor from the start. So what was like, how much do you think your parents influenced you in your younger life?
Well, I wouldn't say my parents influenced me to become an actor, because the acting was my idea. That came sort of from me. But my mum's always loved acting, and they've been so, supportive and helpful. They've always taken me to auditions and just really supported me.
Yeah. So when did you start acting?
So I joined Stagecoach, which is this little acting sort of school thing, when I was about 7 or 8.
So what was that journey from doing Stagecoach to leading you to your first professional job in a stage production in London?
So as I said, I did a couple of plays at Stagecoach, and my drama teacher told my parents that I should probably get an agent. And yeah, so I ended up getting the agent. And do you know what? I think it was my third audition that I actually did for her when I landed appropriate, which was really, really exciting.
Yeah. So it was quite quick then, I suppose, from getting the agent to landing your first thing. I
think I only had her for about three weeks before I actually landed appropriate.
Yeah, so how did it feel to get that first job, like to actually start doing acting professionally?
I was so excited, because I guess I've always wanted to be an actor since I was quite young. I'd dress up as James Bond in a suit that my parents had bought me for a wedding and run about. But yeah, I was so excited about it, and also it was with some really successful actors, and also it's quite a prestigious theatre, so I felt really quite honoured to be able to perform there. Yeah,
so obviously you did 2 plays at that theatre in London. So how would you say those experiences compared with TV, so stage versus TV?
Well, the thing is about stage is you're there in the moment. And the thing that's so great about it is that when you're there and you say a line and the audience laugh, you get such a real buzz from it. But again, theatre is so nerve-wracking. It's so scary, especially when it's your first time on there. Because the thing is if you mess up, that's it. You can't go back. And I remember there was a time where, because in Inappropriate, they're moving all of the grandpa's stuff out of the house because he's just died, and there was a box that was on the floor, and I was supposed to walk to the end, and I accidentally stepped in the box and I slipped over, and it was quite embarrassing. But the thing is because it's theatre, you just have to play it off, like it was supposed to happen. Because I guess the audience don't know if it was a mistake or not. But yeah. Also, though, the great thing about TV is you can go back on it if you've made a mistake, which is always really good. And from my experience, TV you have a real laugh, while as theatre it's a lot more serious. It's very serious.
Yeah. So do you, like, how did those theatre shows like build on your acting from the Stagecoach level to now doing these 2 plays, and then eventually going on to doing more TV and film?
Well, I learnt a lot from all the actors, quite a bit. I tried to take lots of what they sort of had done. I tried to just take little bits from them. I learnt a lot from it, and also it was exposure to professional acting and how it would be. And also it made me realise how hard you actually have to work if you're doing it professionally.
Yeah. So then you went. So after doing them 2 plays, you went on to gain a role in Kenneth Branagh's Belfast alongside the likes of Judi Dench. So how did that happen? How did you get that role?
So I got an audition from my agent, and I did the audition, and I had to learn a Northern Irish accent for it. But yeah, so I did the audition, and then a couple of days later, I got a call from him saying that I'd got the role, and I was so excited, but also I was really surprised, because usually it takes quite a few recalls and like other auditions and stuff to actually land the job. So I was just really happy, but also really surprised.
Yeah. So you were a school child in that film in one of those scenes. So how did it feel to have that experience, to be in this big film, to have just a couple of days on set, but in this big production, such a well-known names in the space, Kenneth Branagh. So how did that all feel?
Well, it was my first job on TV, so I was so happy about it, and I knew it would be a big film because it was Kenneth Branagh, and he's very well known in the industry. So I was really excited to be directed by him. But yeah, it gave me some really good exposure to the camera, and the sets and the costumes were amazing. And to be part of like an Oscar-winning film just feels incredible. We had like, because I know it was a couple of days, but it was really fun to film, because I remember we were in the green room, all of the kids, and we all did like a little talent show.
Yeah, I can imagine that just being a really nice time to also be with other like young actors, because I suppose the plays that you did at the theatre, were you the only kid on them?
No, so because if you're a kid, or actually no, so when you get to 16, so if you're younger than 16, you have to share the role with another kid. So say like in the time I did at theatre, there's 60 performances. I would do 30 of them, and then the other kid would do the other 30 of them. So when we were rehearsing, so we rehearsed for about 2 months. So I've spent lots of time with the other kids, but then when we're actually performing, I wouldn't see them at all.
Yeah, so I suppose it was nice with that film to actually be working with other actors and having lots of like young kids. So like, what do you think that taught you that helped you get in later parts like young Alan?
Well, it gave me exposure to the camera, and I sort of I learned what it was actually like being on set. So when I did season one of Changing Ends, I wasn't surprised about what set was like. I wasn't like overwhelmed or anything.
Yeah. So it really helped you with just the experience and getting
Yeah,
exposure
yeah.
to that.
Mm.
So then you went on to also be in a horror film, The Piper.
Yes.
How did that happen? How did that come about? And I suppose that's so different to what you do now, being young and Carr.
Mm. Yeah, it is. So I got a self tape for it, and so I did the self tape, and I sort of forgot about it, and then about 2 weeks later, I got a recall for it, which meant that I had to do a Zoom with the director. So I did the Zoom with the director, Olinga, and do you know what? I didn't feel like it went very well, but it must have, because then a couple days later, I got my agent told me that he'd like to have another Zoom with me. So I went on the Zoom, and it turned out it was actually my agent there, and he surprised me and told me that I'd got the role. So I'd be flying to Bulgaria in 3 weeks. And do you know what? I was so surprised. I leapt out of my chair, and I honestly think it was probably one of the best moments of my life, because I hadn't had anything for a while. So it felt so good to just finally land something.
And you said, like, what was it, 6 weeks in Bulgaria you got to spend?
Yeah. Mm.
So how was that, being like a young kid, what, 10, 11 at that age?
11, yeah. Oh
11,
God, it
like,
was.
getting to spend 6 weeks in Bulgaria. Like, I think any 11-year-old kid would love that.
It was so cool, and because we were there for a while. It started to feel a bit like home, like we knew all the little places to go and everything, and yeah. Also, filming was awesome because I got to do loads of really cool, scary scenes. For example, there's a scene where there's actually a rat under my bed, and it's supposed to run at me. And I was quite nervous about it because I'm quite scared of rats. But then it turned out the rat was really lazy, and it took about half an hour to actually get it to move. So, but yeah, and it was really cool, and I got to work with some really great actors as well.
Yeah, so was it quite a major part you had in that film?
Yeah, it was a really significant role, so I was really excited about, because it was my first like really big role. So I was really chuffed about it.
So, like, how did that acting, like, compare from, like, acting in a horror film to acting in, like, a comedy like Changing Ends?
Well, with comedy, you have a real laugh on set, but also with horror, it's surprisingly really easygoing because the director and the producers and the cast were all really nice. Because I remember in between scenes, I was playing basketball with the assistant director. So yeah, I guess with horror you have to do lots more serious, scary scenes, which is always really fun. But then in comedy, you get to do really funny scenes.
Yeah. So I suppose that experience of filming that horror film, like, was your first experience into having a leading role and got you experienced in having more of a leading role?
Mm. Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah. So then you went on to be cast in young Alan Carr in the ITVX show Changing Ends, about Alan Carr's childhood. So how did that happen? How was that whole audition process from start to end?
So I was in an acting class, and there was about 6 of us, and my agent, who was doing the acting class, gave us all this monologue to do because it was actually an open audition. So he told us all to do it, And do you know what? The monologue really didn't actually come that natural to me because it was more adult Alan speaking. But yeah, so I did that audition, and then I didn't hear back for a while. I actually didn't hear back until after I'd finished filming The Piper. So then when I heard back, they wanted me to retape, but actually do scenes that they were going to do from the series. And they came a lot more naturally to me. But yes, I did them. And ended up getting a recall. And the recall meant that I would have to go down to Baby Cow Studios and actually meet Alan. So I was quite nervous about that, but I was also really excited. So I went down to the studios and met him, and we did a couple scenes in the room. And do you know what? Immediately I felt really comfortable with all of them because the director, the casting director, and Alan, they were really nice, and they put me at ease. So I did some scenes, and then me and Alan had to sit next to each other, and I had to copy, and he would say something, and I'd have to mimic him and do all his mannerisms and everything. But yeah, they were laughing at things. Like when I did the scenes, they were laughing at them. So when I left, I felt quite confident on how I did. But yeah, so about a week later, I got a call from my agent telling me that they wanted to do a pilot, but that meant that there were no sort of guarantees with me doing with the show actually getting commissioned. So I did the pilot, which was great. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't know whether the show would actually get commissioned to become a full series. So yeah, everyone was telling me that I would have grown too much, and that maybe, you know, because I didn't know whether it was actually going to get commissioned. But yeah, it was about about 9 months later, my parents had told me that we were going to Pizza Express, so that I needed to sort of get home quickly from school. And I got home and I walked through the door into the kitchen, and Alan was there. And he told me that the show was going to get commissioned and that we were going to be filming soon. And do you know what? I honestly think that is probably the most surprised, but also the most happy I've ever been in my whole life. I was so shocked. I could barely speak. I was just like,
Yeah. It's like, was that pilot like a full episode, or was it just like
it was
made on a budget? Like, how do the pilots work?
So they filmed probably about 10 minutes worth of, like, they filmed about 10 minutes. It was a couple of days filming. It was so fun. But what they do is they make a pilot, and they send it to different production companies to get it commissioned into actually making it a full series. So yeah, they were like sending it to loads of different production companies and everything.
Yeah. So I suppose it took you through a real journey, because like you got the part, and then you had to wait a while to see if it got commissioned. If you might have been, even if it did get commissioned, you might have been too old for the part by that point and got like recasted or something. And then finally actually getting it and getting the part and having a full series, and then eventually down the line a second series. That must have been just a whole emotional roller coaster.
It was a whole emotional roller coaster. It was because the thing is that like I wanted the role so badly, but you know, if it didn't, because I sort of, you know, got the role, but if it didn't get commissioned, I wouldn't have been able to actually, you know, play the character on TV. So I was so happy and relieved when it had got commissioned to a full series.
Yeah. So how did you prepare for that original audition? Like, how were you? How did you prepare to like have the Alan Carr voice and all of that, and be the young Alan Carr?
I just watched like some of his TV series, and I watched Chatty Man. I watched lots of Chatty Man, and then I watched some videos of him doing his stand up and just tried to mimic his voice and his mannerisms and everything. But the thing is, though, is that because obviously when he's a kid, he's not going to sound like how he does now. He's going to sound different. So I sort of had to bring myself into the role a little bit, like a bit of like an Alan Ollie combo.
So then obviously with that preparation, it really paid off. And you were picked out of, I think, about 450, is that right?
Yeah.
450 other children. How did that feel?
It was, do you know what? It was great. Because the thing is that you go through all of these auditions and sometimes you don't get them and get rejected. And a lot of the time it's not actually about how your acting was. A lot of the time sometimes it's how you look. And I didn't think that I looked that much like Alan, so I really didn't think I was actually gonna get it. But I felt, when I was picked, I felt really lucky that he'd chosen me to tell his story of his childhood.
Yeah, I can imagine. So obviously you talked about Alan Carr surprising you in your house and you being the most surprised and excited. And then obviously like you went on, so you got the job. So how was your like family's reaction to you actually getting the job and actually being commissioned finally?
Well, they've been on the journey with me. So they're all so happy and, proud when I got it. And do you know what? My mum didn't shut up about it. I had to end up telling her to just stop talking about it, But yeah.
I can imagine telling everybody possible.
Yeah, do you know what? We'd finished filming the first season and we'd just gone to the screening. So it was like a cast and crew screening. And we were in the McDonald's. And it was my nan, me, and my mum. And we were getting a McDonald's and we were in the queue. And my nan like prodded the person in front of them and was like, "Oh yeah, look, my grandson, have you watched, there's a show coming out called Changing Ends, watch it." It's like, oh my God, no.
Yeah. So like, did you have to keep it a secret for a while, or was it like announced straight away that you were doing it?
So when I did the pilot, I couldn't really tell anyone. And then when Alan came to surprise me, I had to wait a couple days before it actually got announced, which is quite hard because I wanted to tell all my friends and everything.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what was that reaction from your friends when you finally got to told them and at school, like,
Yeah,
how was that whole thing?
lots of people were, chatting to me about it and everything. It was a proper novelty.
Yeah, I can imagine. So going back to that first audition you did, saying about sitting with Alan Carr and being with the casting directors and the director. So what was that experience like, meeting Alan Carr for the first time? What was the first impression of him that you got?
He was absolutely lovely, and because the thing is, you get some celebrities that are nothing like they are on TV. They're really rude, or just really rude. And he's completely the opposite of that. He's the most down to earth, lovely, funny person. He's exactly like he is on TV, basically.
That's great then. So obviously you were saying about how you watched lots of clips and stuff. So once you had got that part, did you any like further research and preparation into really getting into the part, or had you already got it down from all the auditions and the pilot?
I'd had it down from the pilot. Like, obviously, because it had been a while, I'd lost the voice a little bit, so I had to, get the voice back a little bit. So I watched some more of his shows. We actually watched. It's a show that he made called "There's Something About Movies." And we watched that a lot, and I took note of all of his, mannerisms and his voice and everything.
Yeah. So this question actually I got from the Instagram post announcing you, and I thought it was a really good question, and I'll say a few questions later in the show from Instagram. But like, what prop, line, or move, or any object in particular, or anything in particular that helps you best get into the role of playing Alan?
100% the teeth in the glasses. Because they make me feel like I'm embodying the character. They make me feel like I'm Alan, which I guess really
feel
helps.
like, I suppose it's just like a different feeling in your mouth from like you on a daily basis, and like you don't wear glasses on a daily basis, so I feel like it's like you're becoming a different person.
Well, mostly the teeth, honestly, because they're really hard to actually get used to, because it is like having something in your mouth. It's quite hard to speak in them at first, but you end up getting used to them and then forgetting that you actually have them in. But because I thought I sounded really weird at first, but then it turned out that it made me sound more like Alan, because obviously, it made me sound a bit more like Alan when I had the teeth in.
Yeah. And then obviously getting into Alan Carr, with most like biography films and stuff, they're usually about people that have passed away or that are not involved in the project. So it must have been a lot of pressure getting Alan Carr, the young Alan Carr, right, because obviously he was on set, it was his show, he curated the show.
Yeah, it was because he was trusting me to tell his childhood. So I really wanted to get it right, but I felt a bit of pressure because if I got it wrong from the actual audience, I could have got really heavily criticised. So I felt a bit of pressure about that, but luckily it's gone well.
Yeah, it's gone very well, and you embody him very, very well. So, like, with the young Alan Carr character, is it kind of like a collaboration between what you think and what like Alan thinks that like certain phrases you should say and certain ways you should do stuff?
Well, he's obviously written what he would have said and everything. So I just do the lines, but then if I get a line wrong, he'll say, "Oh no, it's a bit more like that," or "It's a bit more like this." So it really does help having him on set.
Yeah, and is he on set all the time when you're filming?
No, not all the time. So he's in quite a few scenes. So usually he does his scenes, and then because he's quite a busy guy, so usually he does a scene and then he has to like go. But I'm in quite a few scenes with him.
Yeah, it's like, is it more nerve-wracking, like when you're in the scenes with him, to become the young Alan Carr?
It was at first, but now I've gotten really used to it, so it's not at all anymore. It's just like, it's just Alan.
So how long does it take to film a full series of the show?
We were filming for about 6 weeks, and it was from Monday to Friday for 6 weeks.
Well, it's quite intense then.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, so what was like a day in your life filming Changing Ends? Like, what was from wake up to sleep? What did the day look like?
It depends on what scenes I had that day, because my day would be a mix between filming and then tutoring, because Because of how old I am, the minimum amount of hours I can spend on set each day is 9 hours. So they would sort of have to, like, because they have limited time with me, because I have to do a minimum of 3 hours a day of tutoring. So it was quite. I would do like 45 minutes to an hour of tutoring, and then I'd do like the scene, and then I'd go back, do the tutoring, then do the scene, and then I'd have like lunch or something, and then I'd always do about 2 hours of tutoring after, and then I'd have to do the rest of the day's work after.
Yeah. So like your weekly schedule, Monday to Friday film, and then the weekends off. Was that basically your week?
Exactly, yeah. So I'd usually, it depends what time in the morning I'd get in. I'd usually get in from about 8, or I'd get in from about 10. Usually like 8 or 10 or whatever. But yeah, I'd basically be doing the max amount of hours that I could do. So every day, when we'd be filming, they would be rushing at the end, because I have like 10 minutes left, and we still have to finish the last scene. So it was always a bit of a rush.
I hope you're enjoying the interview so far. Please do subscribe, because it really does help out with getting more guests on the podcast. But right now, let's go back to the interview with Ollie. So what was like the hardest point when filming the series?
Probably, I mean, towards the end, because I was so tired and exhausted that I couldn't really. I was really struggling, and I was finding it hard to, focus, and yeah, I was just really tired.
Yeah, like, was that easier on the second series? Were you more used to it, or was it kind of the similar experiences?
I would say I enjoyed the second season so much more, because the first season I wasn't expecting it to be that knackering. So then when I came into the second season, I knew what it was going to be like, so I was sort of prepared.
Yeah. So what was the hardest scene to film, would you say?
God, the hardest scene would probably be oh yeah. So there's a scene in the second season where I go, "Move over, Big Daddy! Make room for Little Daddy!" And I think I had to do it about 25 times. And when I go, I have to shout it like properly loud. So by the end, my voice was like, "Move over, Big Daddy! Make room for Little Daddy!" Like, yeah.
Yeah. What was your favourite scene to film?
Do you know what? There's a lot. I loved all the scenes in the first season where I'm on the football pitch, because they're all really fun, because we were playing football in between takes and stuff. But I really loved doing the dance with Val in the second season, because we'd rehearsed it a lot, and do you know what? It was a really good dance, honestly. But yeah, there was a big crowd around us having to watch us when we did it, which was really fun. Do you know what? I also really love the scene where I throw up in Kay's face, because they had to get the camera there, and they had like a bottle of blue innocent smoothie, and I had to drink it and take a mouthful of it, and then when they'd say action, I had to spit it all over the camera.
Yeah, I can imagine that was quite fun to do.
It was so fun to do, but the only problem is it was the last 10 minutes of my day, so they had to get it done like really quickly. So I was getting quite rough, so I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have, because I was getting, they're like, "No, you've got to do it really quickly, look."
Yeah. What would you say the easiest scene was to film?
I found all the emotional scenes quite easy. But Do you know what? All the scenes that I have with Christine came really naturally to me. So I'd probably say those scenes.
Yeah. And would you said like series 2 was probably your favourite to film because you were more used to it and expecting what was going to happen?
Yeah, but also it was all the same lot from the first season, so we all knew each other really well. So it was like
Yeah,
we're
more
one big
comfortable with
family
them.
working together.
Yeah. So with the show being set in the 80s,
Yeah.
have you become more of a fan of it?
Do you know what? I've always loved the 80s. Like all the films and the costumes and everything. So, but yeah, I guess I know a lot more about it now that I've done that, because a lot of the stuff from the 80s I didn't really know how they work. Like I didn't know how tape decks works. Or no, sorry, cassette players? Yeah, cassette players, yeah. But because I remember in the first season there's a scene where I'm on the phone and I didn't know how it works, because the earpiece, I had it down there like it was on speakerphone. Because I didn't realise you actually have to put it to your ear.
Yeah.
But yeah, also all the costumes and everything are really cool. Like I have this shell jacket that, I mean, it looks ridiculous, but it is quite fun to wear.
Yeah, so what is it? So it's quite fun being in that like 80s world because you've always liked it.
Yeah, and all like the music and everything in the show's really cool as well.
Yeah. So what was your favourite thing about the whole experience film this series, whether that was on or off camera?
My favourite experience was getting to work with really just amazing people. Like all the cast and the crew, they're all lovely as well. So it feels like, yeah, as I said, it feels like we're just one big family, which is it's really nice. And you know what, it's a really lovely environment to work in, because it's really easy going. It's not like, no, because there's some sets out there where it's really serious, and everyone just has to do their job. But that's not like Changing Ends, because we're all we all have like really nice chats and we all like have a proper laugh.
Yeah. So what was your least favourite?
Probably the tutoring, honestly, because it was, yeah, as I said, it was just really knackering, and also I found it really hard to concentrate.
I can imagine. So what was like what was the like most memorable, funny story that you have from the set?
Oh, there's a few. Oh yeah, I've got one. So, in the second episode, I host a birthday party with all the neighbours, because there's a pervert on the close and I'm trying to catch them out or whatever. And I go, at first I thought it was you, Bin Bag Diane. But I didn't say Bin Bag Diane. I said Dirty Bag Diane. And I said it, and then everyone started laughing at me. And I didn't realise that I'd said the wrong thing. And when we wrapped for the show, they'd actually bought me and then Dave, the director, a bag that says Dirty Bag Diane on it. I'll get it if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, look. Oh, sorry. It might be reversed on Zoom, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like, how do you find lines? Like, how do you learn lines? Like, do you learn lines pretty well?
Yeah, I have quite a good memory, so I do learn lines quite well. But also, because it's on screen, you can sort of not know the lines perfectly, because they can always, if you mess it up, they can just pick it up from that line, the scene. So it's a lot because on stage you have to like know all the lines perfectly, but on screen they can just pick it up if you mess one up.
Yeah, it's like what's your method for learning lines? Because people have different methods.
Do you know what? Because obviously when we're filming, we're only doing a couple scenes a day, so I just read the sides that were for that day, and then usually after like three reads, maybe I've got them.
Yeah, yeah. So like, how far in advance do you get the scripts? Is it like just the day before, or?
So usually I get it the night before, and then I go in the next day. I just read it a couple times, and then I've got it.
So what's your favourite thing about acting, just generally?
There's lots of there's lots of great things about it, like getting to meet loads of wonderful people, but also I would say getting to create a character and tell a story, and you get to experiment, and and also, do you know what? Getting nice feedback from the audience as well is always really nice.
Yeah, I can imagine. What's your least favourite?
All the rejection, I'd say, because I say, like, everyone says, look, don't take it to heart, but it's really hard not to, and because it's when you do loads and loads and loads of auditions, it gets to the point where you just think, look, what's the point in me even doing it, because I'm not going to get it. But you just have to stick at it,
Yeah. Would you say that's like the lowest point you've experienced, when you had that like low of not getting any jobs?
Yeah, 100%. And it was because it was before. So before the Piper, I went through probably about a year not getting anything, and it was a real low for me. Like I honestly wanted to give up acting, because I just felt like I'm not getting anything, and I started to really doubt my acting ability.
Yeah. And the highest point was that getting Alan Carr being in your kitchen,
100%,
having
yeah.
the show commissioned.
Yeah, it's because I felt like, because as you said, it was a massive emotional roller coaster. So to have him in my kitchen and tell me that we're filming this series was just such an incredible experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then going from that onwards, and so what was it like to see the success of the series, being ITVX's most watched comedy of 2023 with over 7 million streams? Like, what was that, thinking about 7 million people seeing your face, watching your acting?
It was amazing, because, and it was a relief as well, because you never know how these things do. It couldn't have got amazing reviews, and to have people say such lovely and wonderful things about it is just it really warms my heart.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you like sit down with your family and watch each episode, or do you stay away from watching yourself? Because there's some actors that like hate watching themselves on screen, and there's some that quite enjoy it.
Well, when people don't watch themselves on the screen, I feel like watching yourself, you can learn, because you can pick out what you did wrong, and then be like, oh no, that looked good on the camera. So I feel like watching yourself is actually really good. But yeah, I've watched Changing Ends a couple times, and then that's it for me. But my parents watch it loads. It's like, oh my god, do you watch anything else? Honestly.
You just walk in the living room and they're watching it.
I walk into the living room, and they're
hear your
watching
voice.
it. And I come down, I'm like, oh yeah, can we watch something? They're like, no, we're watching Changed Ends. It's like, you've seen it 100 times.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I suppose actually with Changing Ends, a lot of like people just don't like hearing their voices, but I suppose it's okay with Changing Ends because you have to have like Alan Carr's voice on, so you don't actually have to listen to your voice on like.
It's actually, so it's not my voice, so you know, it's not.
Yeah. Because after these like 4 years, I'm pretty much used to my voice by now after editing hours and hours of it.
Yeah, you do. After hearing your voice a lot, yeah, you're right. You do get like used to it.
It's like, what surprised you about filming on the show that you just didn't expect?
Well, it was probably I didn't, because when people watch the show, they see the actors who are in the scene, but what they don't see is the fact that there's about 30 people behind the camera. 30 people doing loads of different jobs. So I was really surprised because the living room, it's a small room, and there's like 30 people just crammed in there. So yeah, I was quite surprised about that.
Yeah. So what was your relationship like with the cast and the crew, and how was that thing? You said about earlier being like a family feeling.
Yeah, everyone's just absolutely lovely, and we have a real laugh, and we have a really nice time, and it's really easy going, and we all sort of like encourage each other and everything.
Yeah, so what's your relationship like with like Alan Carr? Is it that similar family feeling?
Yeah, I feel like he really looks after me, and he really helps me as well, and because there's in like interviews and everything, he's like, oh, like he really like bigs me up, which makes me feel really really nice.
Yeah, I can imagine. So who on set has given you the best advice?
I've never really been given advice, but who I've learned from the most is probably I've learned a lot from Dave, the director, because he lets us experiment with the role, and he's also like super creative. And because this show wouldn't have been nearly as good if it wasn't for him, because he's like the mastermind behind all of it. So yeah, probably Dave.
Yeah. And this next question, everyone wants to know: what's the future of Changing Ends?
Yeah, of course we all want to do a season 3, but it just depends on how season 2 does viewing wise.
So do you think that you will continue acting and make it your career? You've not been like scared away from it?
No, 100%. That is what I want to do, because I'd say acting is my passion, and acting's what I want. It's what I want for myself, and I'd really like to succeed at it when I'm older.
Yeah. So what are some of your dream roles?
I don't really have any dream roles, but I want to be known as an actor that has lots of versatility, lots of variety. I want to be like Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or Joaquin Phoenix in Joker. I just want to be known as an actor with lots of versatility.
Yeah, and I suppose you've already shown that a little bit with like being in a horror film compared to the comedy.
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Yeah, and so obviously the podcast's called Chase That Dream. So what advice would you give to people generally just wanting to chase their dream, as you have done already?
Don't give up when things get hard. Just constantly. Don't never give up when things get hard. Always chase that dream. Yeah.
I've got a few questions from Instagram. I don't usually get too many questions from Instagram, but because you posted it on your Instagram as well. I've got quite a few. So let me just quickly get them up now. Lots of saying, will there be a new series? But you have already addressed that. You've said about your favourite scene, but what's your favourite prop from Changing Ends?
Oh, that is a good question. The Walkman's pretty cool. I really like the Walkman, and I like. Yeah, the Walkman's pretty cool. I also really like cassette players as well. I think they're quite interesting the way they work. And yeah, I'd say that.
Is there anything you've managed to sneak in a bag and take it home as a memory?
No, there were. Oh, actually, yeah. No, I didn't sneak it in my bag, but I liked it so much that I bought one from like Amazon. And what it was is, so there's this game, and it's like a cone in this click thing, and you put a ping pong ball in it, and you click it, and it pings up and you catch it. Yeah, I changed my answer. That's my favourite prop, 100%. I actually, do you know what? I think I probably spent hours practicing that, and I managed to get a streak of 80 balls, I think.
Wow.
Because when it would be lunch,
really good.
When it would be lunch, I'd ask my chaperone if I could go to my room and practice the ball catch game.
Another question here. Do you find impersonations easy, or is Alan Carr just one that you've had to work on, or can you do other ones?
Yeah, I've always really enjoyed doing impressions. The Alan Carr one actually came quite naturally to me. Because I do other impressions, but they're really not very good. Yeah, I like doing, Jim from Friday Night Dinner. I like doing that impression. I think I was on season 2. I was doing that so much it ended up really annoying everyone.
There's another question. Who has been your favourite co-star?
I probably shouldn't answer that. There's been too many lovely people that I've worked with to say that I have a favourite.
Your favourite film? What's your favourite film?
I have a lot. Okay, yeah, I'll say a couple. So I really like the Lord of the Rings films. I think they're very good. I really love, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Oh, and Superbad as well. That's probably one of my favourite films. And do you know what? I recently watched this film, which was it was so good, and it's called Lahane. So I recommend you watch that. It's really good.
Do you relate to any of the stuff that's like in the storyline?
Yeah, I do actually, because when I was in school, in primary school, I didn't really feel like I belonged. Like I had friends, but everyone was always off playing football, and that wasn't really me. I love performing and acting and everything. So I can relate to young Alan in a way there.
Yeah. One says here, no questions, just tell him how brilliant he is.
Oh, thank you
lots
very
of love
much.
for you in these comments. There's one here saying, who was Ollie's best friend in primary school? I
actually know who asked that question. So yeah, James. Yeah, it's probably you, mate.
What's the best thing on set that's 80s that you didn't know existed before?
Probably that clicky catch game. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. And then finally, so thank you for coming on today. It's been great.
No
to have you
worries.
on. So that's all we've got time for in today's episode. We will be back hopefully in 2 weeks with another great interview. But for now, goodbye.